You know how it is. Just when you think things are starting to settle down, something new happens that gets everyone talking again. That's exactly what's going on right now. There have been some interesting developments that could end up meaning more than they seem at first glance, and there's definitely plenty to break down. So stick around because there's a lot to unpack. And some of these moves might surprise you. Before we jump in, do me a favor. Hit that like button if you're always keeping up with everything happening around the team. And down in the comments, type "Go Hawks" so I know who's watching with the rest of the Seahawks family. The Seattle Seahawks made a series of roster moves that immediately changed the look of the organization, and while none of these transactions guarantee a long-term impact on the final roster, they are still important because every move at this stage of the offseason can create opportunities for someone while closing the door for someone else. 2 new players are officially joining the organization, and because the Seahawks were already at the 90-player roster limit, 2 other players had to be waived. That means today's news is not just about additions, but also about difficult departures that remind everyone just how competitive NFL rosters really are. The first new addition is running back T.J. Harden, who now becomes the newest member of the Seahawks backfield. Harden previously played at both UCLA and SMU before entering the NFL as an undrafted player. After spending time with the Cleveland Browns during the offseason, he was released earlier this week, creating the opportunity for Seattle to bring him into the organization. At this point, nobody can honestly say whether Harden will ultimately make the final roster, because there are still many weeks of competition ahead. Throughout this part of the NFL calendar, roster changes happen constantly, and teams frequently add players simply because they need another body available for practices and camp competition. Even with that reality, every opportunity matters, and this is now a chance for Harden to prove that he belongs in Seattle. One interesting point surrounding this move is the current situation involving Jacardier Wright, who is dealing with an injury. Because of that, Harden could potentially provide additional depth while the Seahawks continue working through camp. That doesn't automatically mean he has secured any role moving forward, but it does explain why bringing another running back into the building makes sense right now. Every practice becomes valuable for players trying to earn more attention from the coaching staff, and Harden now has that opportunity in front of him. The second addition is quarterback Jordan Washington out of Stanford. Unlike a completely unfamiliar player, Washington is someone the Seahawks have already had an opportunity to evaluate because he previously participated in rookie minicamp with the organization. That previous exposure likely gave the coaching staff enough information to feel comfortable bringing him back into the building. Instead of starting from scratch, Seattle already has an understanding of what Washington brings, allowing him to quickly step into the quarterback room as another depth option. If Washington wants to stick with the Seahawks beyond camp, the challenge in front of him is significant. Depth quarterbacks often have to contribute in multiple ways while demonstrating consistent improvement every day. According to the discussion surrounding his addition, making an impression on special teams could become especially important if he wants to strengthen his chances of remaining with the organization. Every repetition during camp becomes another evaluation, and players competing for the final spots on the roster understand that every snap can influence their future. Of course, every new signing also creates disappointment for someone else. Because Seattle needed room for both Harden and Washington, 2 players are no longer with the organization. Brandon Johnson has been waived, ending his time with the Seahawks. One important detail mentioned regarding Johnson's departure is that he was waived with an injury designation, suggesting that unfortunate circumstances may have played a role during his time in Seattle. Injuries can dramatically alter opportunities for players trying to establish themselves, and this situation appears to carry that additional layer of disappointment. Garrett Nelson was also waived after spending only a very short period with the Seahawks. His stay with the organization lasted roughly a single day before another roster move forced another change. While that may sound surprising, it perfectly illustrates how quickly situations develop in the NFL. Players can arrive one day believing they have a chance to compete and then suddenly find themselves looking for another opportunity almost immediately. That reality is difficult, but it remains one of the toughest parts of professional football. These transactions also demonstrate how fluid the Seahawks roster remains during this stage of preparation. Coaches continue evaluating talent every single day, front office decisions continue evolving, and players know nothing is guaranteed until final roster decisions are made. Today's additions should not automatically be interpreted as future starters or guaranteed contributors, just as today's departures should not be viewed as the end of anyone's professional career. Opportunities continue appearing throughout the league, and many players released during training camp eventually find new homes elsewhere. Beyond Seattle's own roster activity, another major topic gaining attention involves Aaron Darnold and the latest developments surrounding his possible return to the Los Angeles Rams. Reports discussed during the source material indicate growing confidence that Darnold is working toward getting back onto the field. One key development came from the NFL transaction wire, where his activity with the Rams generated significant discussion. While there was public clarification regarding exactly how that activity should be described, the important takeaway is that Darnold participated in football-related work using team equipment, representing another step toward returning. The explanation presented emphasizes that this should not be viewed as a random appearance. Instead, it fits into a larger process of preparing himself for football again. The belief expressed is that Darnold has a clear plan as he works his way back, gradually increasing his football activity before officially returning to action. Rather than seeing this as speculation alone, the latest developments are interpreted as strong evidence that his return is becoming increasingly likely. At the same time, the discussion also makes an important distinction. While Aaron Darnold returning would unquestionably strengthen the Rams, there is also the opinion that expectations should remain realistic, because returning after an extended absence is very different from simply continuing where a player previously left off. The focus is not on denying his accomplishments or questioning what he has achieved throughout his career, but instead on recognizing that returning to the field after time away naturally creates new questions that only future performances can answer. With the Seahawks making multiple roster moves, while attention also shifts toward one of the division's biggest storylines, there is certainly no shortage of developments for fans to follow. Which of today's Seahawks roster moves do you think has the best chance to make a real impact on the team moving forward? Even if Aaron Darnold does return, one important point remains impossible to ignore. The discussion isn't about whether he has been one of the greatest defensive players of his generation. Instead, it's about what version of Aaron Darnold could actually step back onto an NFL field after spending significant time away from the game. The source makes it clear that his return would absolutely strengthen the Rams, but it also argues that expecting the same dominant player from previous seasons may not be realistic. The latest reports show him progressing through the necessary steps, using team equipment during his football work as part of the process toward getting back on the field. And that alone has fueled the belief that his comeback is becoming increasingly likely. From Seattle's perspective, however, the focus has to remain on its own preparation. The Seahawks continue evaluating every player on the roster, adding competition where necessary, and giving new faces every opportunity to prove they deserve a place on the team. T.J. Harden and Jordan Washington now have that opportunity, while Brandon Johnson and Garrett Nelson will look for the next chapter of their professional careers after being waived. That's simply the reality of NFL training camp, where every practice, every rep, And every roster move can completely change a player's future overnight. The coming weeks will reveal whether today's additions become meaningful contributors or simply another chapter in an off-season filled with constant roster movement. Until then, every development deserves attention, because this competition is far from over. If you enjoyed this update, make sure you subscribe to the channel so you never miss the latest Seahawks news. Leave a like if you want more exclusive updates like this, and let me know your thoughts in the comments. Do you believe these roster moves will make a difference? And are you concerned about the possibility of Aaron Donald returning? Thanks for watching, and don't forget to click the video that's on your screen right now, because that's where you'll find the next big Seahawks story. The fastest Seahawks updates are right here, and you won't want to miss what's coming next. Go Hawks!